Welcome, 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 and welcome some more. It's been a long time. I shouldn't have left you, but I'm back now. Coming back to give you guys some more just ridiculous conversation from me during this critical hustle happy hour. Thank you for everyone that tunes in, that comes in later, however we go. Um, got guests coming in today. I have a guest waiting to talk to you guys. But guess what? I'm going to talk for a minute and tell you where I've been and where I haven't been. So, life happens, nothing major, didn't go to jail, didn't do anything like that. Just got really busy. And when you get busy, um, certain things are like passion projects. So, this honestly for me is a passion project, but I always want to make sure I give you guys great content. And it's a lot of things that I've tried to set up on the backside of this so that I could give you guys a great show. So, there's some things coming down the line. This week, our topic is going to be friendship. And what I want to delve into is as adults, why are so many adults not having friends? Like, they just don't have friends anymore, or they don't hang out. Not to say, I won't say they don't hang out, but they don't seek out friendships, or, they have friends, but they keep them at an arm's distance. And it's so different than when you're a kid and you have friends. Because when you're a kid, you're like, this is my friend, and you share all types of information, or maybe you don't. I don't know. But we're going to get into it today. So I'm going to bring in my guest here, a young man by the name of Max. Um, Let me say this. Max is probably one of my favorite people that I've met, and I know I always come on here and say this person is one of my favorite people, but truthfully, I'm not going to talk to anybody that's not one of my favorite people. So I'm not going to lie to you. That's just the case. But Max was really interesting because he's like the most guarded, friendly person that I'd ever met before, and really, you have to stop to take time to talk to him in order to get to see just how much he knows and just there. And truthfully, I don't even know a lot about Max. So I guess in the scale of, would you say Max is a friend? I think we're friendly. I think if there's a question that we know the person asked, yes, we'll ask. Would I invite him over for a barbecue? Sure, but there's COVID, so we haven't done that. Anyway, let me introduce you into Max here.
Hello, I'm Max.
Let me just first of all say that's the smoothest I've ever brought anybody in. So Max, welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Glad to be here. What can I say? Very humble one. Thank you for considering me to be friendly.
Hey,
Um,
thank you.
we'll go over that more in detail soon. But um, yeah, I'm just ready to dive into it.
Okay, well, I'm gonna tell you. I start every show off with one question, and you didn't let me down because I already knew. I figured this, but I was a little surprised when I saw your glass. But my first question to you is, what are you sipping on?
I am just sipping on Coca-Cola, but not your American version. It's from Mexico, so it's apple flavored Coca-Cola.
I want to see the bottle.
I don't have it. It's over there.
Okay, well, you'll have time today.
Okay.
Personally, I am sipping on Crown Apple, which the reason why I chose this Crown Apple here, one day I'm gonna get like an alcohol sponsorship, but the reason why I chose Crown Apple is because my father-in-law gave me this bottle of Crown Apple for Christmas, and I don't normally drink Crown Apple, so I hadn't opened it. We had family over, and surprisingly, people wanted Crown Apple, and I have no problem with sharing any alcohol that's in the house, but I realized that if I don't get in on this at some point, it may not be here because it seems to be a house favorite. So,
Wow.
Crown Apple, cheers to my father in law.
Nice. Cheers.
Now, moving on to talk about friendship, friendliness. There. Well, I'll set the ground this way because I'm from California. We're not nice. We're not friendly people. So that's not kind of how we interact there. And it was interesting moving down south because Southern hospitality. People are really, like, in comparison, really open and what we would consider to be friendly. But then I learned that, like, if you call somebody friendly here, like, that's the worst thing that's like a top 10 of things you shouldn't call somebody in
Yeah.
Houston. Is like, don't call anybody friendly. No matter how polite they are, they ain't friendly. So I've learned that, yeah, I have never called anybody friendly here. But what I will say is that I have a group of friends that I maintain friends for long periods of time. Like I don't know what it's like to we were friends during this period of time and now I don't associate with you. Um the oldest friend I had in my wedding was from when we were 10. So like
Wow.
I've known him since 10 on. Probably the oldest friend that I have since I was 8 there. Like I call on the phone right now. I just turned 42, so like that's the vastness of my friendships, and every friend in between fits somewhere in that timeline. So I'm curious to know, Max. Tell me about your views on friends. Like, how long have you had your best friend?
So my best friend, since high school actually, early high school, probably like 2009. Jeez, I'm getting old. So about oh, okay. Well, speaking on my own
No,
half.
no, that's fine.
So that's about 11, 12 years ago. I consider him my best friend. I've known him the longest. Who I still keep in touch with. He moved away, so he's in Austin, so not too far, but last time I seen him was over a year ago, and we text each other once a year, but it's more like just catch ups and stuff like that. So we stay in touch, but I wouldn't say it's nearly like local. And I feel
Mm.
like local friendships, they not necessarily they mean more, but it's more accessible, so you get more personal. There's a quicker time to get to know someone, obviously, because you're spending more time with them. So I feel like definitely longer distance relationships, they kind of not necessarily fade out, but in a sense, they lose a tad bit of value over time if you don't, rekindle that.
That's interesting. So, like again, for me, I maintain friendships over a long period of time. So, the friend I mentioned from 10, I think we he moved away when we were 18, and we kind of kept communication being in California at the time there, but um probably like I moved to Texas and then we stopped really talking, and I probably hadn't talked to him for like 3 years. One day I get a phone call and haven't talked to him, like no voice, nothing like that. He calls, he's like, "Hey, you know what this is?" I was like, "Yeah, come on, like of course." And he was like, "So I'm getting married. You want to be my best man? Would you mind being my best man?" And I'm like, "Sure." But I found that with the separation there for me, if we stop talking, I've always picked up with my friends as if we never stop talking. Like it's just
Yeah.
normal balance and continuous of conversation. But it's interesting because as I've gotten older and you move, you start realizing that like people don't really maintain friendships. Like they grow out of their friendships. I think that's the term people use. Like they grow and they move on to other stuff. But then it makes me wonder, like, well, if you grow out of true friendship, like was it just for a time, a season, or do you just decide that, hey, you know what, I didn't really like this person that much anyway? Like who's worth retaining? Like how do you say with your friend, you consider him to be your best friend, and you've known him since high school, and you guys talk maybe like exchange a text maybe once a year somewhere in there. I mean, maybe there's other interactions somewhere else,
Yeah.
but like when do you how do you compare that to say somebody that's a friend here that you've known less time?
Okay. So first, just to address something really quickly, um, I wouldn't necessarily say people they grow out of friendships. I think they evolve, right? Like constantly. I myself, I love information. I love opinions. I can have a debate or just a civil conversation with anyone at any time. So I feel like as a person, right, like my views change, right? So necessarily what I thought was cool or to my taste at the time, it could change, right? I'm not necessarily growing out of it. I'm
Mhm.
just getting different interests. And not to say, we look back and we're like, why was I friends with this one person 10 years ago, right? It's
Mhm.
more like, okay, I can see why. I was hanging out doing this. My job was this at the time. So yeah, you can kind of realign the dots together, but definitely there's a reason. Whatever that reason is to be a friend at one point of time, I think that's why we were their friend, if that friendship broke up. To address my best friend, we can talk for maybe like once a year or once every other year, and it'll be like a short span of time, right? Like I'm talking about, we'll talk straight for about a week. And like you said, we'll talk as if we've been talking throughout the entire year. But, and I will add this, I am a little different in you, where you said you could just pick it up as if, there was no time that elapsed. I'm not like that, in the point that I do question, like, where have you been? Where have I been? Um, not necessarily kind of just standoffish, but
Mhm.
more like a, what in life has kept us apart, right? Just truthfully, because I feel like if you're gonna have a friend, right, have them for life. If you're gonna associate yourself with someone, make sure they're to your liking. So
That's interesting that you say that, because part of my thought process really is life happens, right? Like life happens. For most of my friends, like they got married, had kids. Like I'm the last to get married. I'll be the last one to have kids unless they do something funny. But like honestly, so a lot of it is, life happens and you catch up. But what I've always found interesting is, and maybe this is something, because I've always told people like I've been the same. Like my mentality's been the same since I was 8. Like just how I view things and how I process it hasn't changed much. Like again, of course, like you said, you grow there, but I don't know if I ever really change so much, or very life varies so much that you don't have conversations with the, like even you pick up, you're like, oh, what you been up to? So you have, even in that initial conversation of getting back in contact with each other, you're still talking about like what's happened in your life,
yeah,
right? So it's, I guess I get it. I guess also to your point is like I've never really questioned why my friend hasn't done anything. It's just like, hey man, look, life happens. I can spend this time on the phone with you now, asking you, where have you been? Why haven't you called me? But the reality of it is, you're here now. So
true.
let's enjoy this
I
moment.
didn't think of it like that. Yeah.
Hey, but I got a couple years on you. If you're old in 2009, if that's your oh my god point, yeah, 2009, I was like, hey, you know what? People are gonna be people. It's fine. But um, so transitioning that now, then. So again, we'll set the table as, we'll call him Austin for purposes of this conversation. So your friend in Austin,
Okay.
when I say best friend, you think of that person who is a person that you don't talk to on a regular basis. So where does that put the people that you would say in your life now that you consider a friend that you talk to on a regular basis? Like,
Well, what is a regular? So I'll be honest with you. I have a boss that I don't even talk to on a daily basis. So what exactly is a regular basis for you?
well, I
Um,
mean, think of somebody you consider a friend. Like, put it like this: I know somebody that you know that I would say this is your friend, right?
yeah.
Like we know a mutual person.
Okay.
So in your interaction with that person, how often do you guys talk?
At least a couple times a week. Yeah.
Right. So to me, like that sets the table of, like, I would say that's almost best friend level, really. But like
Okay.
like to me, because I'm like, if I'm gonna talk to you on a regular basis, that means when I'm mad about something, if something's happened, I probably called you first to be like, hey man, you know what this person did? Like you're having that interaction, and not on any questionable like that, but like you obviously respect that person's opinion. They have some value to your life, so you're probably running your ideas through them, or comparing things like that. So not to cause a situation or anything crazy, um, but the balance of that person compared to Austin, right? Like if I'm like, who's your best friend? You didn't think of this person. You thought of, well, really, that Austin guy. Like,
Yeah. Well, I guess. To be fair, I thought, you started talking about your one of your best friends, right? And
hmm,
the the difference of, having them since you were a child. So I was just thinking like long term, what's one of my oldest friendships, and he was my best friend at the time. I still consider him one of my best friends. Um, but yeah, I just feel like, even though we don't talk as frequently,
Mm-hmm.
as some of my other friends that I talk on a more regular basis. Um, he still, believe it or not, actually knows more about me
Mm.
than most of yeah. And like you said, and when you introduced me, I am kind of like a vault. You kind of got to get the password just right so you can get into my personal life. But I mean, it's all just, I guess it's all relative, you know.
Yeah, no, I can see it. I mean, one of the hardest things in the world for me to do was pick a best man, a groomsman, and that because again, I had to set it's almost like you have to play a game show. Like, what's the criteria of this person should stand next to me at my wedding, kind of thing, right? And I told my wife, I said, here's the thing: everybody that I would put in the wedding at any given point in my life probably could be my best man. Like, it literally, for whatever point in space that we saw each other or talked to each other on a regular basis, they fit in that role. But I also had to say, well, these are also friends that there's a story that we've been through something together that it's like I 100% know the character of this person. We've experienced blank because I may not be able to say what blank is, but blank in this moment, and I'm like I know who they are. Like we didn't roll this life together, and if I'm gonna have a person I'm bringing into my life and we're gonna spend the rest of our lives together, yeah, I don't see y'all going anywhere. Y'all keep me sane and all that. So I took a group of guys that really didn't necessarily know each other, and we even have a group chat now because I was like, hey, this group chat is all of us. My best man actually, as he travels for work, if he's in the city where one of the other guys is, he gets together with them. They smoke cigars and have a conversation. Like, so to me, like friendship takes on a whole different meaning. As also, I don't know, and I don't know this about you. Technically, I was raised an only child, so
Yeah.
like my friends, it was more than just, hey, this is my buddy and then there's my brother over here or my sister and there's a different layer. My friends are really like brothers. Like, hey, we might as well bleed the same blood. Exactly there. So how about you? Like, do you have brothers and sisters? Let me ask that first.
I have one older brother. He's 5 years older than me, and unfortunately, I'm not as close with him that I would like to be, but we still hang out. He's local, so I do have that opportunity. And yeah, I've been Houston born,
Mm.
born and raised Houston my whole life. So definitely going back to like the whole Southern hospitality that you mentioned earlier, I can definitely see that here. And I definitely get what you said by calling someone friendly. It's definitely a no no here.
Yeah.
Um, but it is kind of surprising. I've never actually had any mutual friends with my brother. Could possibly be because of the age gap.
Hmm.
We never went to the same school growing up. 5 years, it's just
Just missed
outside
the
of that
window.
4 year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, but exactly, yeah, like you were saying, I don't really have that chance that you just brought up where, hey, this is my brother, this is my friend, right? Because there's no real mutual friends there. Again, it's all just choice, but um,
So let me ask you this,
yeah.
which I feel like I know the answer, kind of, but I'm curious to see how you answer this. How close do you allow people to get to you? Like, what is I guess, what's the acquaintance, the buddy, the like friend? Like, I don't know which hierarchy means something to you, but like, everybody ranks people like, this is a coworker, this is an associate, this is my work buddy, and you just start breaking it down from there. Like,
Yeah,
w-
so I guess everyone has a hierarchy, like you said. I wouldn't necessarily scale it that specific in detail. Um, I guess my you have strangers and enemies right there, right? Basically, just people that you don't. I'm just diving straight into it. Strangers and enemies, at the bottom where you're just like, okay, they're there, right? Again, as we were talking about previously before we started the show, I told you I have a really calm threshold. So enemies, they're really just I don't have any, to be honest. Um,
why did you
strangers
kill
are
them?
there.
Did you kill all your enemies?
No, I guess I haven't reached anywhere in life yet where I have any. There's
Right.
there's there's nothing going against me that I feel threatening. So that's just that. And then after strangers, you have people that I guess you would consider an acquaintance or a
Hmm.
coworker. I would group um, those categories together with like coworkers, acquaintance, colleague, just people that necessarily I would say on a first name basis. You know their name, right? But you don't know too much, or you don't hang out with outside of a formal setting, right?
Right.
Whether it be school, work. It's kind of almost as if you need to know them,
Right.
right, for your mission. Um, Outside of that, going one layer above, I would say that's your buddy, right? That would be someone as if I would consider you my buddy, right? So you're someone that,
I think it's a buddy level.
yeah, like I said, I'm not very detail oriented.
Right. Right.
Just because I guess like we're about to find out, right? Is my definition of friend is different than your definition of friend.
Right.
My definition, it's just our own definitions. So I feel like a buddy is someone that you can reach out to if you have a question. You can reach out to them. You're comfortable enough where you're not asking yourself, is it okay? Right? The main question for me would be, is it okay for me to contact them?
Hmm.
Right? Once you break that barrier, you go from any type of acquaintance, coworker, colleague, straight to buddy. You can message them outside of work, after hours. You both are mutually enough comfortable enough with each other where it's okay, right?
Right.
After buddy would be friends, like close friends, best friends. I would primarily group that together just because the difference for me and best friends and friends is just the level of how much do you know me. If
Right.
someone were to ask you the question about me, right, you could answer on my behalf. That's how I would see it. It's just you've known me longer, you know more about me, just stuff like that. And to me, friends would just be like you hang out at least, I would say, well, not exactly hang out, but just you would speak with each other at least a couple times a year.
Right. No, that makes sense. I mean, I think that's honestly, I think that's a really healthy approach towards the the concept in general, because in your hierarchy, people can ascend, right? Like they like, because obviously we were associates first. We had worked together,
Exactly.
and it really the beginning of knowing you was just like, hey, Max, hey, like it's not really a deeper conversation, and then because you're in a coworker environment and you have conversations, then you get to know a person, and you're like, all right, well, he is not as crazy, or maybe he's not, because everybody, I feel like this, everybody prejudges, everybody looks and judges the book by its cover, like that's just it.
That's true. Yeah.
So until you have interactions with a person, it's really being open to say, all right, well, you know what? This person's cool, or there's more to them than what I initially got there. So then you kind of filter a little bit more, because I will say this publicly, because I've said it to your face and said it around people around you, is that in initially meeting Max, Max played the I'm just a young guy who doesn't know anything whatsoever. And we're like, okay. And as I'm talking to Max, I'm having conversations, just random like conversation, and he's saying things that I'm like, okay, wait, there's way more stuff going on with him than this guy is a security guard. Like it got to a point that I had to get to a place like, why are you here being a security guard? Like, what is going on with you? Like, are you bored? Like, Max felt like he was the undercover boss. Like it was just like you be talking to him, and you're like, you might want to watch what you say around Max, because at any moment the camera's gonna come out and be like, well, Jerron, let me tell you, Max is really the owner of this company. He's hired these other people just for respect, so that they can feel, etc.
Yeah.
But
I wish.
yeah, don't be all. But the the thing that I got from Max was, one, again, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but sometimes if you stop and just take a minute to talk to a person, you can get enlightened into other different things. And in all reality, what a lot of people don't know about me is I don't really think anything is crazy, because my natural thought process is, if you tell me this is your plan and I'm listening to it. And I'm like, I'm trying to figure out how to make it work. Like before I dismiss it as this is completely insane, I'm 100%. How do you make that work? And then I'm able to have a conversation about it because I didn't jump in the car with you. Like, okay, so this is what we're doing. I think that's crazy, but this is not a bad idea. Maybe you should think about this. And you know, that's just my natural way of being with people. So whether it's a friend or foe or anything like that, like if you're in a comfortable enough space and you bring something to me, I like business, so I'm gonna have those conversations. So a lot of my initial conversations with Max were kind of centered in that world of like, Jerron, let me ask you this. What do you think about this? And I'd be like, Max, that sounds completely insane. But here's why. Like I never wanted to be dismissive to whatever somebody was saying. Like, this is why. And I think it's like if you can like tell me why you figured that out, and I'd be like, okay, there's a lot more going on. So I'm not gonna put Max's personal business out there, but it was just a lot of those kind of conversations.
So okay, um, to speak on that, there's a process for my madness. Okay, so initially when you met me or at least heard about me, right? I'm sure it's some controversial things, but
No, you were not that. It was nobody was talking to me about watch Max.
watch the security guard. You don't know
Yeah,
he's
that
watching
was,
you. Um, no, but in all honesty, yes. I do feel like I have an autopilot mode, right, where I just kind of go through the motion of stuff, right, daily. And then in my inner thoughts, that's probably the Max that you're not so familiar with. And that's kind of the Max that I keep to myself is I have all these thoughts going, right? I just study, I love new things. So when you initially talk to me, you're just talking to autopilot Max, right? I'm just automatically like, hey, how are you? Good to see you. Just everyday small talk. But as you progressively, the more time you spend around me, the more likely I am to just, talk out loud about my inner thoughts.
mhm.
So I guess that's kind of you're reaching that slope where you're getting in the inner max. So congratulations. You're one of the very, very few.
um, I guess that's good because Outer Max is crazy, but
I don't yeah.
but I think that's the cool part because a lot of what I wanted to talk about in this show is like, do people leave themselves open to have friendships in adulthood? Like, so many people sit there, like you mentioned, not having any enemies, right?
Mhm.
And like, I don't know if I have enemies or not. I don't even care personally. I'm just like, you're not gonna stop me from doing nothing, and if you do, you're gonna expose yourself. And do you really want to be exposed? Like, hate from the sidelines. But I find that a lot of people, like when you look at memes, if you do social media, everybody's like, don't trust people. This, keep your business to yourself. This, that, and the other. There, and I'm always thinking to myself, like that's a very closed life to live. Like, don't get me wrong, be cautious. Like, you're not gonna go up to a stranger and be like, "Hey, let me tell you about my life." But there's a certain point where you have to keep like this, I'll say, childlike innocence in regards to dealing with people. Of like, let me be open enough to see what this person's about. Because if I just take you as autopilot Max, here's what I heard you say in this. Because this
Okay.
is the interaction. So me, I'm looking at it like, okay, here's the security guard. He serves me a purpose. He's here to keep me safe. Like, hey, I think one of the first conversations I had with you and every security guard is, so let me ask you this: what kind of training do you have? So if this shit jumps off, basically, are you going to be like, what is exactly is your role? Because I need to know: are you trying to save my life, or are you just here to report what happened to my life? Like,
Actually, I do remember you asking that. And I can tell you for a fact those weren't the exact same words,
no, because we were at
but
work.
Drew, my manager at the time, he was standing next to me and I looked at him, I was like, is he serious? I have no idea how to answer that. I was like, who asked this? You're the first and only person to ask me that. And so going off of that, just yeah, like you just caught me by I mean, I figured, you'd be like everyone else. You need a badge, right, to get through, or you need something else, but you totally just sideswiped me with a question of, are you willing to take a bullet for me?
Yes.
Pretty much. And it was at that time that I knew I had to up my game for drone. So
Well, to in my I'm not even in my defense. If for everybody that I currently work with, when we go back into working in the office, like you really should ask this question because what is the purpose of having a security guard if it's not to be safe? And here's what I know about just human understanding. If you like me and you have to choose between me and a random coworker, you might be willing to go a little bit further. So let me have a good relationship with the security guard. Like if I'm running trying to figure out where to go and you're hiding, I want you to be like, shh, try over here. Not like, well, hope you make it. Like don't want to fall into that. I'm gonna add in one of our former coworkers as well. Hey Brad.
Hey.
Hey Brad. Brad just gets the regular introduction into here. But to finish my thought there is like no, I ask questions because I mean again, you're a security guard in a building. What is the value? What is the value to you if you're like, no, my job is to call the police when something happens? Well, I'm thinking to myself, you're technically the first target. Like, if they're going to come in, what are you willing to do to stop this from killing everybody? Are you willing to be the hero? Because if you're not, then I'm like, hey, that's cool because I'm not either. So at least I know where you stand in this process. But I think, like I said, that was how we initially just started having conversations, and then I think we started talking about houses and different things. And just from an age standpoint of where you were, I was like, you know, Max has a lot of knowledge to be doing this. I'm like, why is he hiding out as a security guard, risking his life that he's not willing to risk? There's got to be bigger and better. So then that always just makes me curious about a person.
in my defense, it's a corporate environment. It's pretty safe.
That was my thought. But yeah,
But
you know,
yeah, yeah, you're exactly correct. I was blessed enough to have my first house at the age of 22. So I mean, what was I doing there actually at the time? I don't know. We'll leave it a mystery for now.
yeah. So let me give Brad a proper introduction. So Brad, I'm gonna give you in a timeline thing. So Brad was like a famous coworker, and I say this because you go into a place and you know somebody and you're just like, I know everybody knows this guy, right? They like everybody knows who Brad is, and I was like, cool, but at the time, Brad didn't really mean anything to me. He was just a guy at the office. And I had been having this idea of doing like a TV channel. And what Brad had done is, I'm going to say it all wrong, but I'm going to say it so layman that Brad's going to correct it. But I'm going to make it fun. So Brad basically was able to create on digital signage, because that's the word I learned from Brad. He was able to create like what I saw on Sundays watching Fox and ESPN. And you know, when you have like a regular job and you see somebody like, hey, this is the best salesperson, it looks like he's about to run out of a tunnel. You're like, hey, that's pretty cool. And I fashioned myself a pretty decent salesman. So what I realized was, hey, the content that I'm gonna get from this TV channel is probably gonna be crap because I'm looking for free content. Like if you have a dream and a camera, I can make something happen. So basically, if you're gonna do that, if you're gonna package a bunch of shit, for lack of a better term, you probably should get the prettiest wrapping paper that you can find to make it work. And so I talked to Brad because he's the only person I'd ever seen that could do this. And here's this. It's gonna be out of order because I don't think Brad told me this first, but I will 100% say I said this to him at some point in that same range. If you've never seen Brad Parler walk past you, like, and
always brings this up. Always brings this up.
And you'd have to see old Brad to fully get it because new Brad is a different Brad. So now it kind of makes more sense. But Brad seemed to like float. Like he walked as if nobody in the world mattered, and you guys are all now. Mind you, this is probably one of the most humble people I've ever met in my life. But his walk was like, I am more important than all of you. And
Brad, I can attest to this. This is 100% true.
Like you just watch a person, and mind you, I'm a man talking about another man. The only other man that I've ever heard talk about anybody like this is people talk about Prince. Like you hear people talk about Prince, they be like, he kind of just floated in. Like, but Brad walked with a gait that is just epic. So that's like one of the things that's cool in itself. But the I
It's one
asked
heck of
Brad
an
about
intro to live up to.
right. So I asked Brad like so when I finally was able to like overlook his walk and stop it, have the audacity to stop his pattern, right? Just, excuse me, Mr. Paula. um, I want to talk to him about like the digital signage because I'm thinking, well, maybe there's some quick, easy way to do it. And I asked Brad about like partnering up because that's just who I was. And Brad hit me
Mhm.
with probably, which is one of the first times in my life somebody was like, "Yeah, I don't really know you." Like he didn't say this, but he was like, "I don't know you to even remotely entertain this in a way. But hey, you seem cool, and we're coworkers. I'd be happy to advise." Like Brad gave me probably my first lesson in this is how corporate America works, sir. So if you want my time, I'm willing to loan it to you, sort of, at a certain level. And I was like, you know what? Again, I have a different view of stuff. So I'm like, anytime that you're willing, if you give me a window, I'm going to get you to let me all the way in. But I just need a window because I don't mind giving up equity. You have something that I have no idea for. So taking
Mhm.
something off my plate is great. Now, with that being said, that was my introduction to Brad, and that was almost 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And I like honestly will say that like Brad is friend family level to me. Like like I would say a brother. Like I mean, we haven't like been through a war together, thankfully, because at this age, I don't want to have no more wars. But
It's
like
true.
as far as being genuine, honest, helpful with information, probably even more helpful than he knows at times. But really, like the commitment. I've I've said this to myself, so you can't validate this, but I'll say it openly here in a recorded form. Like Brad is one of the few people that I sit there and think about. Like everything I'm doing, I got to pay Brad first. Like I don't care what it is. Like I've got to pay Brad. Like that's like a continuous thought. I guess I tell you this, Brad. The only person that can to verify this is Brande
Mhm.
because he's
Yeah.
probably the only person that hears me say that on a regular basis. But
And
like,
he's told me you say it.
oh well, there you
I'm
go.
pretty sure he's mentioned it once.
But so and I say this because in the idea of what this conversation is about friendship, and I
Mhm.
think about the fact of in our introduction, like if I had a took, well, I'll be an advisor as I don't really know you, get away from me, along with that walk of like little person stay away from me. Like I don't meet this
Man.
person, I don't get to know this person as a friend.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that as adults we lose that genuineness of just connecting with
Mhm.
another person, for whatever that reason is. So that's my introduction to
On
Brad Parler.
on the
Oh,
other side of that, the I don't know you, let me consider being an advisor comes from the my introverted nature, which is I'm a very social introvert. I'll give me that at least. But a lot of that is from being very guarded and not allowing that many friends having that level of access in my life. And so I can honestly I can count on like one hand that many people who I really that I give that level of access to in my life. You and there I mean like Jerron, you're definitely, and when you say that friend and family role, you're definitely in that on my list. And I have a lot of acquaintances and a lot of friends. I have very very few close friends that I give complete access to.
well, I appreciate that. Max, I'm gonna win you over too. You're gonna be a friend family member as well. It's a little bit more time. I'm gonna wear you down. But
I'll work it up.
um, so like kind of going back over some of the things that Max and I talked about is how do you, or for you, Brad, like, yeah, knock yourself out,
All
Brad. I
right,
mean,
cool.
listen, oh
I
well,
just put
yeah,
on chat. I don't want to make it with. This is
no,
my
no,
first
no.
time on
So,
the show.
well, here's the funny thing. My normal question to people is, "What you sipping on?" So I guess
Ah.
so yeah, you feel
Well,
free to
empty
tell.
stomach. Empty stomach. So I don't have a drink in hand. But for now, the clouds are oatmeal cookie and milk.
I'm gonna be real with you. So Brad is vaping, and that did not sound delicious at all. Nothing about that sounded delicious.
It just took me by surprise. I was like, okay.
No, I just don't. So it's funny. I was replying. Look, we're just gonna have the conversation. Like, there are a lot of flavors that I think you can pass off in a vaporized form.
Yeah.
Oatmeal cookie, maybe. But then you said oatmeal cookie and milk. Like,
and milk.
Right.
Yeah, I'm on this keto thing. You guys know, and I'm vaping the things I can no longer have.
fair. Yeah, Brad, you know what, you win. You know what? I would say this. It's very few times that I can think of where somebody just completely surprises me with what they are doing.
Oh, come on,
to be
now.
like,
I'm always that guy.
Vaping is whatever, but it's just like you got a flavor that I'm like, who came up with the idea that this is the flavor? Like, to me, that runs in the same level as when Lay's was like, you want some chicken and waffles, and I was like, not from my chip. I don't want that from my chips. I don't.
No.
I don't vape, but I kind of feel like I don't want that from my vape. I don't.
No.
But going back to the subject, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Is when you look at friendship, right, and developing friendships as an adult at this point, how do you view the idea of like being open to friends? Because obviously when we first met, it wasn't like we're gonna be great friends. Like, that wasn't the thought process there.
I mean, it wasn't that long, to be honest, because we're a very like-minded, and I think a lot of it as an adult and making friends, it comes to time and shared struggle. Mm-hmm. If we're in something together, it's one of those deals where it's one of those things. Are we going through the same struggle? Are we working on something together, on a thing that's outside of our occupation? Are we collaborating on something? And I don't mean it to just be like a work thing, because it's not like drawn like your and my relationship transcends work. We vent to each other. We people who, if you haven't had the opportunity to meet Jerron in person, no, because like once you get to that tier of friendship, Jerron has this and I don't believe that you're gassing people up for the sake of gassing people up, but you're the friend that is always in your corner. And to be honest, you saw things in me that I questioned, and you were just cheering me on the entire time. And that meant a lot.
Well,
especially, going like 2 years back, just 2 years back, and making the decision to not continue in like corporate America and go off in this adventure of being an independent contractor, was scary. And I think that you were one of the first people, before I even bounced the idea off the missus, I wouldn't have done it without her vote. Let me just make sure that that's very clear.
Right.
But it was you have to make sure that you're in something together. Otherwise, if you're not in agreement on something like that huge, then it's not worth doing. But it was I think you were one of the first people that I had called. It's like, hey, I think that I'm going to go this route. And I don't think that you even questioned it. It just made sense to you. And so just having that vote of confidence and kind of bolstering my confidence in the decisions that I was thinking about doing over the last 2 years. And it's not always been a bed of roses. Well, it has, because there's also been thorns. But yeah.
Right. I mean, I think a role that everybody knows the role that they play, like in their life. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I used to, when I was a kid, or when I was like 15, 16 years old, I used to tell people, either I like you or you serve me a purpose. Outside of that, I don't really want anything to do with you. And people be like, "That's so harsh." I was like, "But it's the truth. Like, if I don't have people around me I like, then why are they around me? Because then they need to serve me a purpose. And if they don't serve me a purpose, what are we really sitting here doing? Like, what is the point?" So a lot of my vetting is like getting to that place of knowing where you are. So, you know, our initial introduction out, it was a purpose. Like it was purpose of like, I'm trying to get this done. And if he's cool, great. But right now, here is the closest person to me that can give me what I want to get done. So my thought process is whatever conditions he puts on for me to get him involved in what I'm fine with it because I don't have nothing, so you can't take anything away from me in that manner. And if you take the idea and run with it, I always tell people, still an idea from me because you got to work to do it, even if it's just my idea.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll validate it for me, like, okay, I was right, that could work.
And you'll just watch it happen, and you can reverse engineer it.
Yeah, or sometimes people are better equipped to take your idea and do something with it. So like if I got a $1 million idea that costs $20,000, but I don't have $20,000 to spend, then I guess that's what it is. But then my thing is, to one of the things that I'm working on now, if I got 10 friends with $2,000 each, we'll get that 20, and maybe we'll become. I'll be a 200,000 there. You know, like that's the approach that I've learned to like grow into. But I look at it as when you find value in people, the genuine value there.
Yeah.
The next step to me, and even before you get to a friendship, is how can I return value? So now I got to. So I'm gonna tell you, because I did the thing for my birthday about like tell a story or whatever. So I'll tell you what mine is, and you just have to like. I'll come up with another one. We have a lot of history, but like one of the best moments for me in regards to why Critical Hustle exists is when we went to go buy your DJ equipment.
Yeah.
Because for me, it's like, look, I know you have this talent. I know you're working, you're doing this. And what I find for anybody who works a job or in life is you have other things that you dream of doing. But because nobody is there saying, well, why can't you do this? Like, what are you truly expecting from it? Why not do this on the side or do these kind of things? There, if it's not going to break your household, do it because it builds you into whatever's next. So having that moment with you of going to look at it, not knowing how it works or whatever, not even knowing this side of you existed other than in conversation, to be able to take that and then like when I did the brunches, right? And then you're out there, and mind you, I've never seen, like, Brad and I have not talked about music, like not in depthly to where I should have been like, Brad, you should DJ. Like, I don't know if Brad can DJ or not. My theory was I'm gonna find out. So I'm doing this brunch. Brad obviously offers a DJ. I usually get another DJ just that I'm like, okay, I know he can DJ. So if this is not going well for Brad,
there's always a backup.
We can go ahead and rotate somebody else in.
Yeah.
And so that was just a great experience because to me, the idea of Critical Hustle is motivating the highly motivated. So like, I know Brad's a super motivated person. Max, I know you're a super motivated person. So like in that same mindset, most of the people around me are motivated to something past whatever I know them for. So I'm always naturally encouraging to that. And so like watching that happen, but I want to say, and you can tell me the timeline. You can definitely tell me the timeline there. But at one point, Brad calls me and says, so I'm like the #1 DJ in Poland right now. And I was like, what are you talking about? He was like, yeah, my mixes, I'm the #1 DJ in Poland. And I was like, great. We could use that to book stuff for you. Because in my mind, I'm like, I don't know what that means. I don't even know how he's #1 DJ in Poland. But what I do know how to do is, hey, listen, the world is based on algorithms, GameStop, AMC. All I'm saying is that
to the moon.
When you find it.
I think I remember that. Was that on SoundCloud that you showed us, Brad?
No, it was on Mixcloud.
Okay. I thought I was there during that
So
time. Because
it
you walked
was
around showing everyone.
dude, it was weird. Like I found a fluke, and I was number one, not just in Poland but like in the world, for this one esoteric genre that I listed my mix in because I used part of that green. Come on, gray machine.
Oh, well, I like green.
And
That's
yeah,
fair. That's
all
fair.
good, man. I can't figure out how to. Do I have to interact on the chat for like on Facebook?
You can interact with either one. Both of
All right,
them. We're learning
gotcha.
StreamYard. Shout out to StreamYard for this
Yeah,
wonderful platform
shout
in
out
which I like
StreamYard.
using. StreamYard are the best. Give me this for free.
No, I'm yeah. I was trying to go through and it's like, how do I respond to Jason? Good to see you, Jason. Um, but yeah, I found a fluke in a hashtag that hadn't been used whenever you're listing what genre you're going to be mixing in, and I ended up number one in the world for like 2 days because no one had posted using that hashtag, even though it's the actual like the way that it should be listed. Um, and so I have the screenshot. Like it happened. I can publish it.
Yeah.
It's,
And
but it
to
was
that
fun
point,
because I hadn't DJ'd in like I think that when the last time I had DJ'd out somewhere, my son who is now 17 was just about to be born, and I had an FM radio show.
so the point I bring to all this is that, like, I believe friendship as an adult starts with just the ability to add value to the person, right? And you know, I think when you find out that a person that you meet has a goal, a dream, a desire, whatever you want to call it, that's in your wheelhouse, right? It's in your wheelhouse to make it happen. Why not make it happen? You know,
Mm-hmm.
I can speak to um based off like my birthday party this weekend. My wife threw me a surprise birthday party, and like first of all, it's the first post-COVID thing. I think people were actually coming out. Like that hit me later on. That like so my guy friends came out and basically was like, "Well, I'm not going out the house for no reason, but hey, it's Jerron's birthday. Why not?" You know, like those are the things that kind of show that you add value. At the end of the night, my friends that couldn't make it, like my wife had them do video. Like they did like a video thing, and so I'm watching this video and I'm not tearing up. And I say that because I'm not, but like it really was really cool to sit there and you sit there and think like, well, who I think I am and who I try to be to these people, like it means something to them, you know. And I think that when it comes to the colloquialism, we like be solid, being a solid person, right? And in being a solid person, um, sometimes it's just being a human. Because to me, it's human interaction. So like like Max, like you said, like I'm happy to be a buddy, but for me, it's like Max, we've had enough conversations. I'm like, if you call me and say something, um, if you call me and ask me a question, if I have the answer, I'm all for it. Like just call me, hit me up, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
and so I always tell people everybody doesn't make it to friend level. Everybody doesn't necessarily make it to buddy level. It might be just in this space and time. But what I was getting to before you came in, Brad, is that you see so many memes and like Instagram posts and social media that's so negative about, yeah, you gotta keep stuff to yourself if you want to be successful. You gotta watch who you take stuff to because you never know that they plotting on you. And I'm just like, who lives in this world?
Too
Like
many.
like I'm a person that believes, how do you I always think about this. Who is sitting there worried about me so much in my circle of people that they're trying to stop me from doing something? Like that's their main mission in life. Like Jerron's doing too good for himself. I gotta stop it. Like, no. I have friends that I don't speak to anymore, but if I see them doing good, I'm like, hey, you know what? Good job. And I'll shoot a message. Like I don't want to have a I don't I'll say this. It sounds really rude to say this way. I don't care how you're doing. I don't care what you're doing. This came across, and I applaud you for getting it, because that's um that's that's how, to me, the world works. Like, I may not get along with you on a personal level, but I don't want to see you do bad. Like, if you can win, go win.
Mhm.
You know, I'm just not
Yeah.
supposed to help you do it. So, do the best you can there. So that's why I want to do this first thing on friendship and just really talk about how do you navigate, like Brad, how do you navigate the Brad Parlor haters?
Um, I don't listen to them, and yes, they're out there. They exist. I've met them.
But I mean, I think about that. I think about the fact of, to your point, what you said earlier, a lot of people don't have the opportunity to have anybody in their corner. Like, nobody
Hmm?
sit there and say they can do it. But I had another friend tell me recently, he was like, what I like about you as a person is you'll say something doesn't make sense. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
because if I don't, like, first of all, for me to say I care about you, like, I got to tell you what I think, because one, the selfish side of me is, if I let you do some random bullshit, you're gonna try and pull me into it, and I don't want to do that. Like,
Yeah.
I don't ever want to half-heartedly do anything with my friends. So, like, if they're doing something and I'm for it, I'm gonna be like, I'm for it, or let's sit down and figure out how can we do it so that it works out the best possible way. And then if I think it's just completely nuts, I'll be like, look, that sounds crazy. And it's not me saying don't do it. I'm just like, I can't figure out how to make that make sense. So
Right.
please do whatever you want to do. But I also go out and I talk to Brad. Like, if I have an idea that's anything media related, oh, I'm quick to call Brad. Like, listen, this is
Hmm.
the idea I have. Does this make sense? I mean, even in the process today, with what we shot with the show, with the show that we shot, there, things, right? Somebody that did one of the shows said, hey, what happened? What's going on with this? And I was like, hey, COVID happened, repositioned, rethinking it, and then the
Hmm.
idea that I wanted to do or at this point almost 7 years ago became the, why don't you guys just do this? And my thought
Hmm.
was, well, wait, why would I remotely pay to do something that I had the idea to do 7 years ago? And the reason why I have content now was because acquiring content was the hardest part. And then I just
Hmm.
had to, like, suck up my pride and say, all right, well, maybe this is the way we need to go. So, you know, I think, but I have to run it by Brad, because at this point, I don't consider Brad. I don't. The word doesn't even come to me now, but I consider him my partner. Like, I don't consider it being like, oh, he's advisor. Sorry, because Brad left being an advisor so long ago that I'm like, who advises me now? But so I think of it as a business, as this is a
Right.
partnership. So, like, does this make sense to you? How can we make this
Hmm.
work? And then what I've learned that I have to do with Brad as part of my buddy thing is, because Brad's a professional, and whenever you hear the word professional, just know it costs more. Like, that it costs more. So then I have to remind Brad that individually we have to think poor. We have to be broke. Like, we may not get the Z, but how can we get the B? And then once we get the B,
Hmm.
that'll get us to C, and we may have to piece it together to get there. But let's figure out how we can get there. So, like, I think that you have to be that to your friend. You have to be that person to have that soundboard and say, hey, this makes sense or not. There, you know, I I will say this as far as with Max. And again, I feel like this is coming out to, like, let me just big up people I know. One of the main things that made me interested about Max is Max would be, well, now you don't work this, so I can say it. Max would be fully into, like, understanding, learning stocks. Like, he would just be fully into this thing. I would have no idea what Max was talking about, but I was like, hey, he knows more than me. So if I have a question, I could be like, Max, what you think about this? And he would say, well, this, or I'm doing this, or there. And I respect thought process. So, like, I don't care that you're the security guard. I'm like, this might be your play money. You might be like, look, I'm good over here. I just need money I can blow. And this was the easiest money I could figure I could sit here and just get and do whatever. Whatever. Let me learn from that. So believe me, Max, I've wanted to call you probably for like the last month about, all right, listen, this stock market thing is crazy. Groupthink is taking over. Yeah. And then it's nothing traditional
Hmm.
about it. So where are you at with it, right? and we'll have that conversation later. But um, I'm really big on having friends of different backgrounds. When the whole Black Lives Matter thing was happening, my wife was continually like, "Why do you have all these different people on here with these opposing thoughts?" And don't get me wrong, people were saying really crazy, crazy things, and I was just like, it doesn't bother me. One, it's just words, but I also think about the
Mhm.
fact I might be the only representation of a black person that they have versus just what they see on TV. So my thing is, if you feel strong enough to make the comment, I'm strong enough to have a conversation with you. And it doesn't mean that I hate you. It doesn't mean necessarily that you hate me. It just means that your background and my background are different, and we're viewing the situation from two different perspectives. And you know, people have ego and things involved, but I've learned that in the concept of social media, in the concept of friendship, like you kind of have to let your ego go and
Mhm.
realize that the world is bigger than you and the perspectives are different and bigger. And I might not like what you say. I think it may have been one or two times that somebody said something I just thought was completely ridiculous, and I had to say, "Hey, stop for a second. I know you. You're not this person. So what exactly are you talking about? Because I need you to define where you're about to go with your next level of comments because you're looking this way." But I think that we have to have friends with different diverse backgrounds. Like everybody wants the world to be a better place, but I'm like nobody wants to have a friend. So I'm like, well, how do you balance that out? So Max, I'm gonna
Mhm.
put that towards you, um, because you said you're closed off, there, and people have to pick your lock to get you.
Correct.
So
So,
please, yeah.
well, going back to social media conversation, I feel like it's gotten ridiculously easy to exploit someone, right? You can post a tweet on Twitter, something that you could just be in the moment tweeting about, and someone take a Snapchat, and although you delete it, right, it's saved. So I guess a lot of people are afraid of that aspect. So a lot of people are kind of like not showing the real them or not being as exposed as they would like to be or open. Um,
Mhm.
and for myself, that's kind of why I don't really do too much with social media. Not necessarily that I'm afraid of, just I have different levels of what I want people to see, right? So if you're not very close to me, I don't need you seeing all my weaknesses for say, or having that ammunition to expose me, in case I just do an in the moment
Yeah.
thing. So that's just me. And I know we had a lot of things going on. So what was the other question or conversation that you want to go on,
Well, no,
Brad?
I mean, actually, I feel like you kind of gave me something that I did want to touch on. So I'm gonna jump from whatever I asked you to jump to something else. You mentioned having different levels to you.
Yes.
Do you think there's a friend that you have that knows all your levels? And I don't, and not like psychologically, but I'm just saying like
Yeah.
they know like this is Max at his worst, this is Max at his best, and
Yes.
that's
So
fine.
I think, yeah. So I think the only person that would know that in detail level would just be my partner, right? She's
Mm.
probably the only person that knows that much about me. And to be quite frank, she's the only one that I converse with on a daily basis. Like I
Mm.
mentioned before, I have a boss that I report to, but I don't even talk to him every day. It's just more like catching up stuff for work. Um, so in that regards, she is the only one, and I know a lot of people who they're open about everything, right? They're just an open person,
Mhm.
extrovert, happy to talk to everyone. I myself, I am not like that. I like to be, a little closed off. Not to say if you ask me a question, I won't answer or go into detail, on my opinion or anything like that. But I wouldn't be the first one making the first move in the conversation, right? I wouldn't just be like, "Hey, Brad, Jerron, um, guess what? When I was 14, I did this." Right? Now, if you ask me about the moment or how my childhood was like, I might get there. But I personally, I'm an introvert like Brad, so you kind of have to, warm me up to that. So
Mhm.
Okay. What about you, Brad? The levels of Brad Parler.
It's kind of like an onion. You just like multiple layers, you know. And like if you peel it or cut it too much, you start crying, or I do. No,
You need a
I
Brad
think
Parler.
I think that like what Max was saying, there's only one person who has that level of access, and it's my wife. Um, because that's the way that relationship, I believe, is like your partner is your person who should have 100% access. Um, I can't say that everybody else has that level of access, um, because that's just, I don't believe that that's the way it was structured. We're as humans, we were meant to interact with other people. Um, I know other people who, like what Max was referring to, are very open. But I deeply suspect that as open as they are, I don't know anybody who will just be a completely open person. I think that there's always something under the surface that they're not showing you, and that's okay. You know.
Right.
Um, but yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
forgot the
mean,
original question. I'm sorry.
no, me too. Listen, I'm drinking crap.
I'm bad at
No, but
interviews. I've not been
but
on anything like this for a while.
well, I think you guys touch on the point because so how I've always looked at like groupings of friends, right,
Yeah.
is different experience levels. And probably something that I gravitated towards a long time ago is nobody gets through life by themselves,
hmm
in general. And if again, I mentioned earlier that I'm the last one of my friends to get married. So like at bare minimum, if you've been married, like I expect for you to be able to answer questions for me. Like I I don't know what this feels like or how you're supposed to respond to this. Like that's part of the process of marriage.
hmm
I the day that I found out about income based repayment, like for student loans, I called all my friends that graduated and cussed them out because I was like, y'all came talking about consolidation and what about this? And they were like, you didn't know? No, they didn't even say you didn't know. They were just like, well, I did this. I'm like, but why? And it made me just feel like if you have information, make sure it's available because you never know what your friends are going through. Because again, like you said, everybody doesn't want to be open and explain it. We bought our first house. I talked to as many people as I could because I'm like, I know people who buy houses. So like in our experience, I'm like, you know what? They make this seem like this is the most difficult. You're not going to be able to do it. Like all these things. It was not remotely as complicated, at least in Texas, as people made it feel. So like my thing at that point was when I have friends that I know like they haven't bought a house or they don't know if they're gonna have a house, I'm like, hey, look, let me tell you, it's not as complicated. Save about this much money or do this here. There's these different little things because for me, having a house is one thing, but I'm like, we live in a world now that doesn't want to teach you how to own anything. And if you're ever talking to me about the idea of generational wealth and I want to be wealthy, the first thing you can do to start the idea of generational wealth is buy a house. Like if that's the only thing that you ever do, somebody needs to give you that information because the world's not trying to give it to you. So it's just always interesting because I've learned how to scale it back in terms of I'm injecting myself into my friend's business, but I've learned to at least say like, hey, if you don't mind, or if I'm not overstepping, here's this. Because before I would just tell you, like, why don't you do this? And you get like some people just don't. That's not what they want. But I also felt like be the friend that I want people to be to me. And whenever
Mm.
that being that friend is a problem, I'm telling them like I might offend you, but you have the ability to offend me back in this same manner. Like I'm not calling you out your name. Maybe I'm telling you something you don't want to hear, but I think you need to hear it. And as your friend, I'm going to say that. And if you decide that you don't want to be my friend because I felt I needed to tell you something, then we probably don't need to be friends because that means you're going to hesitate to tell me something. And I
Mhm.
don't want you to hesitate. So like I think that there's an ownership that comes with friendship that somehow as you get older and you acquire and like money and things like that, like I don't have an issue with telling my friends how much money I make. One, because why do you care? like like it doesn't make anything in your life happen better. If you don't want to tell me how
Mhm.
much you make, that's fine. But most of the times I'm like, if you know how to get more money, let me tell you where I'm at, because maybe you assume because my life is here or I'm doing these things, I make more than that. No, no, I don't. So let me tell you the exact number so that if you make $200,000 a year, you're like, man, Jerron, I thought you made more than that. Yeah, I wish I did. It doesn't make me feel bad, but let's talk about how I can get more. Or then maybe the response to that question is, so you did all that with that much? How are you doing that? And I'll be like, I'll be happy to tell you. I'll tell you how me and my wife travel. I'll tell you how me and my wife do a million different things, because people should just live and enjoy life. Like,
Mhm.
I don't want to have those barriers. So, and I'm always trying to get my friends money also. So it's kind of like I might be like, hey, I might get you an extra $100, but if you make $300 an hour, you'll be like, Jerron, I appreciate the thought, but there. So I don't even have to waste my time or your time telling you those things. But I feel like, yes, there are things that you're gonna always keep to yourself, there. But I find that the things that I think you should be talking about in your circle of friends, people are always like, yeah, I would never tell them that. One of the questions I asked people on Instagram was, would you do business with your friend? Because I have a group of friends that we play football together. I've known them for 20 years. One day I just hit one of our group chats and I was like, why do we not do business with each other? Like, why am I willing to do business with somebody else? And I know nothing about them, but hey, they're into whatever I'm into. Whereas I have this group of people, I know when you had kids, I know who you've been when you were 15, who you are at 40. Like, you would be a good business partner because I know these things. I know what changes. Maybe you change when money gets involved. But a lot of that stuff, I've
Mhm.
had enough experience to be able. You have those conversations up front. There are things
Yep.
that you have to do, but I know the character of the person, because I find that most people, you run into character issues. It's very hard to run into, like, a person stealing money from you in a business environment. It's a character problem. It's not a,
Mhm.
oh, they're a bad business person. No, that's a character thing. Like, they thought this was okay, or they figured, hey, I can get over. So I was I wasn't surprised because I hear it a lot, but it was really eye opening for so many people to be like, "No, I tried that. I tried doing business." And then my question is always the same: is like, but were you in the right mindset to do business, or were you just like, "I'm with my friend"? Were you supporting their dream, or did you
Mhm.
support a solid business plan?
Right.
So I'm curious. I mean, Brad, I got to exclude you because, well, actually, no. I feel like we were trying to do business first, and then we became friends, so it's okay. But
Yeah. Yeah.
but like, how do you guys feel about that in terms of doing business with your friends?
Actively do it right now.
No, well, there you go.
So the studio where I'm a creative director, a large majority of the coworkers that are, we're all on the same team. And I was like, we're not big on titles. I just, what I do is best described as a creative director. But a vast majority of the people that are on that team, we all went to church with each other for a long time. Um, so uh, our project manager, he and I went to high school together. Like we've seen each other grow up. We know, and a vast majority of us all go to the same church. And so, yeah, I mean, we're in the thick of it and doing amazing things for our clients, but we're all friends. It's more
Well,
of a family environment, even though it's like a whole bunch of different families.
right. What about you, Max?
So from my experiences, I do not like to mix the two. If
Mm,
I'm being 100% honest, I've had several business plans actually fail because they were
Mm,
started with friends. And I feel like it is 100 times easier to develop a friendship out of a business than to develop a business out of a friendship.
mm,
I feel like it could be again just because the character issue that you brought up, John, but I think that you get way too comfortable with each other, right? Timelines, they kind of tend to slip up. And you're more depending on each other from and I know you state as opposed to I know what you can do state, right? Again, the businesses that I have tried, in the past. It could have failed for different reasons, but I just feel like mixing the two, it doesn't end well. Um, and it's kind of like the old saying, mixing family and business, right? Because at the end of the day, it's someone that you know as opposed to someone that you're bringing on board from their technical background. So that's just my 2 cents. I personally don't like to mix the two. If it works out, great. I just feel like the risks, there's way too many more than the success rate.
So let me ask you this, in particular to your situations, the ones that failed, are you still friends with the people?
Typically, yes. Um, the friendships, they last. I mean, I'm not gonna say that, any distance hasn't been added because
Right.
of it, right? Or that the views on each other haven't changed at all. But it's definitely more like, from my standpoint, it's more of an awakening, as I know what you can do and what you can't do, right? And not to say they aren't good coworkers, it's just we weren't a good fit to work with each other for a specific type of business. Not to say they're a bad friend or that's a bad business idea. It's just all the pieces together, they were just not meant to be.
Right. So, and it's funny, like when you say that, because one of the responses I gave to someone about that is, or at least my approach to it is, if I know a person that can do the work, like I know them, I would rather hire a friend. We were talking about my wedding. The guy that did my wedding, the travel agent for everybody, is somebody that I've known. I guess at that point, maybe. See, I got here 2002. We got married 18. So like 16 years, 15, 16 years. Like I had known him that long. And my whole thing was the most important day of my life feels very uncomfortable to put in the hands of a stranger. Like it just feels uncomfortable. And I know people do it all the time, but I was just like, they have these horror stories. So my thought process was, if I hire this person, I know who they are. The last thing in the world they'd want from me on this particular day is a horrible experience. And that's going to make sure that they do everything that they can within their power to make sure it's right. They're not going to write it off like, okay, well, they'll be fine or they'll figure it out. Like they're actively going to get involved. And like I said, I ended up having a situation where it affected my mom, which then takes it to a whole nother level. And they
No.
and they were a person that I called like immediately. They're like, hey, what's going on? And they immediately jumped to action, stopped whatever they were doing, got everything straightened out in like 5 minutes. If it was somebody else, they're not probably going to stop what they're doing, there. Um, but I also look at it like, if it's a job that I'm willing to pay somebody for, why wouldn't I pay my friend? And even that may be looking at it from an employer employee, but I don't even think about things in that manner. I just think about the fact of like, I know you can do quality work, and I know this is what you do. So before I go find a stranger to go pay, like, how much would you charge me for this, or what does it take to finding out the scope of it. So I think a lot of times when people try and do business with their friends, they don't vet their friends, because just because a person has a good idea or they have the talent doesn't mean they have the work effort through, right? Or it may not be the best time for them to do any of those things. And so I think that a lot of times the idea of working with your friends, you have to be selective. Like, it may not be the guy that has the most money, because maybe he has the most money, but he has the biggest mouth and feels like he's a know-it-all. Yeah, I don't. That may not be what we need. Or maybe the person who doesn't have any money, they're willing to learn. Are they going to work harder? you know. But I just think that there's a certain thing to be said of creating your circle of success, so to speak. And if you come along in life and you find somebody, to your point, Max, like you said, this business partner became a friend, you know, is great. But for me, it's trust first. Like, I gotta trust you first to even remotely want to yeah, I gotta trust you to basically even want to say that I want to do any of these things with you in the first place. So I think it's a very interesting. Like I said, I think it's a very interesting point that people take, and I can understand being burnt. If you get burnt several times, you start to be like, hey, and not to say, Max, this is not directed towards you, because when I say it, it's gonna sound like it is. But one of the things I always say is that if you try something and it goes wrong, taking the common denominator. Like, are you looking at the right people for whatever you're doing? Like, where could this have gone better? Did I put that person in a position to be a good partner? You know, there, or were they just a complete asshole and it was just like I should have known that this person was an asshole? You know, and there, it's taking a certain level of ownership. So, you know, I think the idea of friendship and business, or just friends as adults, just comes down to a point of one, to being open to the idea of it, um, trying to figure out what that like mindedness is, and then whatever you're getting from this new interaction, being cognizant of, well, what can I give back to it? Because I think
Mhm.
friendship develops from that place. Even if that person is an acquaintance or somebody who serves you a purpose. All right, well, look, I know they're going to serve me a great purpose. What can I do to return that favor? You know,
Yeah.
Businesses talk about being servant leaders, and I don't think a lot of people understand what that means. But it really comes down to, like, you have to be a servant friend. Like, sometimes your friend needs you. Sometimes the person that's not even your friend needs you specifically, and you can't think. Well, I don't even think about them like that. You never can gauge how much somebody thinks of you. So, um, I gonna put this comment up here. That's right. I,
Yeah, I agree.
so, with all that being said, I appreciate you guys coming out tonight and giving me your Friday, and did pretty good here because I'm only 21 minutes over than an hour, but it's okay. We had to get our Brad time in, so technically, technically it's really an hour from Max, and I got an hour from Brad. So Max, you went overtime. Brad, you gave me an hour. I appreciate it.
I'm sorry.
Um,
I'll lend you some more time next time, Brad. It was great seeing you, by the way.
It's good seeing you
so
too, Max.
Thanks, man.
and it was good to bring this back. Um, I'm debating if there'll be a show next week because, to be honest with you guys, I will be out of the country, and
Mm.
the only reason I would really want to do something next week is just because I just think it's fly to be like, and I did the show out the country, and I'm drinking this foreign drink. Enjoy this here. Shout out to Silk because
Nice.
I've actually never met him face to face. And yes, I was definitely more than an online rapper. um, but this is one of the people that I met when I was rapping and doing music, and
Nice.
always a person I sat and had conversations with. And as much as a person that you've never met can be a friend, I definitely consider him as such. So I just point that out. But
Cool.
um, yeah. So we'll see what next week's topic is. We'll see if I do it out the country, which is a good chance I will because I'm getting excited about it as I think about it. So we'll see what the Wi-Fi is like.
So,
But again, I thank you guys for taking the time out. And if y'all need anything, of course, you can always reach out to me because that's the kind of friend I am. But have a good evening. Thank everyone for tuning in. And I will see you guys next week.
Definitely. Thanks for having me.
thanks for having me too. Bye.